What if the greatest work of art ever created is sitting in someone's attic, never seen, never displayed, never sold? Does that work matter if no one else ever lays eyes on it? Here's the real question. Does art need an audience to be art? We live in a time where everything is shared. A painting isn't just painted, it's posted. A song isn't just written, it's uploaded. A poem isn't simply written in a notebook, it becomes a caption under a filtered photo. But there's a deeper question that often goes unasked. What is the point of art if nobody else sees it? Is art valuable only when it's received, understood, or applauded? Or does it have an intrinsic worth, even if it stays hidden in the shadows, never leaving the creator's hands? This is not just a question about art, it's a question about life, meaning, and expression. First, let's start with the basics. What is art? Art is creation with intention. It could be a painting, a melody, a story, a sculpture, a dance. It's the human impulse to take inner experience and give it form in the outer world. But here's the key. Art begins in the act of creation, not in its reception. A painter doesn't need a gallery to be a painter. A writer doesn't need readers to be a writer. A dancer doesn't need a stage to be a dancer. Art, in its essence, is an act of becoming. It's a way of saying, this is what I feel, this is what I see, this is what I am. So why do we get stuck on this question of audience? Because audiences validate. Audiences give us applause, attention, recognition. They make us feel like what we're doing matters. Think about it. A comedian is only funny if someone laughs. A singer is only powerful if someone listens. A writer only feels complete if someone reads. At least, that's how it feels. But is it true? The danger of needing an audience is this. We begin to create not for expression, but for approval. And when we do that, the art shifts. It bends itself to the tastes of others, and something pure gets lost. History gives us examples of artists who created in obscurity, sometimes never recognized until after their death. Vincent van Gogh sold only one painting in his lifetime. He died thinking himself a failure, yet today his work defines modern art. Emily Dickinson wrote nearly 1,800 poems, most of which were unpublished while she lived. She didn't write for applause, she wrote because she had to. Henry Darger, a reclusive janitor, spent decades writing a 15,000-page fantasy novel and illustrating it with hundreds of paintings. Nobody saw it until after he died. Were they artists even before they had an audience? Absolutely. Their work didn't become art only after people discovered it. It was always art, because art is born in creation, not reception. So if art doesn't need an audience, why do we make it? Psychologists suggest 3 big reasons. Expression. Art lets us express feelings too complex for ordinary words. It's therapy, catharsis, release. Exploration. Art helps us understand ourselves. When we create, we discover hidden corners of our own minds. Connection. Art allows us to bridge the gap between inner and outer worlds, between self and other. Notice that only the last one, connection, requires an audience. Expression and exploration exist, even if no one else is watching. Think of it this way. Art is a mirror. Sometimes we hold it up for the world to see, but sometimes we hold it up for ourselves. A diary entry is art, even if nobody else reads it. A song you hum in the shower is art, even if no one records it. A doodle in the margin of your notebook is art, even if nobody frames it. These acts matter, not because of how others receive them, but because of how they shape you. The act of creation changes you. It pulls something out of your soul and gives it form. That act alone is sacred. Now, let's be honest. While art doesn't need an audience can transform it. A poem written in solitude becomes something else entirely when read aloud to a crowd. A painting in a gallery interacts with viewers in a way that shifts its meaning. A play performed live is co-created with the energy of the audience. Philosopher Roland Barthes said that once a work is released into the world, the author dies, and the interpretation belongs to the reader. In other words, once your art meets an audience, it takes on a life of its own. So while art doesn't require an audience to exist, it does evolve in profound ways when it meets one. But here's the trap. Chasing an audience can kill authenticity. When you create only for applause, you're not making art. You're manufacturing entertainment. That's not always bad, but it's different. True art asks, what do I need to express? Manufactured art asks, what do they want me to express? And when you bend yourself to the latter, you risk losing your own voice. Here's the paradox. Art doesn't need an audience, but art is also one of the deepest bridges between humans. Why? Because it communicates across time, space, and even death. A cave painting from 30,000 years ago still speaks to us. A poem written centuries ago still moves hearts. A song written in grief can comfort strangers you'll never meet. So while art is complete in solitude, its power lies in its ability to echo beyond the artist. Today, artists face a unique challenge: the culture of instant sharing. Every sketch is uploaded, every verse is posted, every dance is filmed. We measure success in likes, shares, comments. But here's the problem. When art becomes dependent on validation, it loses its freedom. The artist becomes a performer for an algorithm instead of a seeker of truth. And so, perhaps the bravest thing an artist can do today is to create something and not share it, to let it exist just for themselves, to reclaim creation as an act of freedom, not performance. So what does all this mean for you? If you've ever written something, painted something, recorded something, and felt disappointed because nobody saw it, remember this: the act itself already mattered. The art already lived. If you want an audience, that's natural. Humans are wired for connection. But don't let the absence of applause make you believe your work has no value. The audience is a bonus. The creation itself is the treasure. Let's try a thought experiment. Imagine a world where nobody else could ever see your work. No one could hear your music, read your words, or look at your paintings. Would you still create? If your answer is yes, you've already found the heart of art. If your answer is no, maybe you're not creating art. You're chasing recognition. And that's fine, but it's important to know the difference. Some argue that art does need an audience because its role is to serve society, to challenge, to heal, to inspire. And that's true. Art changes culture, and culture needs artists who share. But the artist's responsibility is first to the art itself, not to applause. The work must be honest before it can be useful. So, does art need an audience? The answer is paradoxical. No, but also yes. Art doesn't need an audience to exist. The act of creation is complete in itself. A painting hidden forever is still art. A poem unread is still poetry. But when art does find an audience, it multiplies its meaning. It travels beyond the artist, enters new hearts, and reshapes the world. The key is this: never create for the sake of an audience. Create for the sake of truth, expression, and discovery. If an audience comes, let it be a gift. If not, let the art still stand. Because in the end, art is not just about being seen, it's about seeing yourself more clearly. So I'll leave you with this. Would you still create if no one ever saw your work? If your answer is yes, then you're already an artist. And maybe that's all art ever needed to be made. If this made you think differently about art, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Does art need an audience? Or is the act of creation enough? I'd love to hear your take.